Welcome to FA Cup Files, ESTD 1871, where football's oldest trophy tells its greatest stories. Step into history with FA Cup Files, a tribute to grit, glory, and the birth of the beautiful game. Since 1871, legends have been made. FA Cup Files brings you the stories time tried to forget. Sir Matt Busby, 1945 to 1969, 1970 to 71. FA Cup wins, 1963, beat Leicester City 3-1. Key moments. First trophy after the Munich air disaster, 1958, helping rebuild the club's spirit. The 1963 victory ended a long trophy drought and laid the foundation for European glory. Sir Alexander Matthew Busby, the 26th of May 1909 to the 20th of January 1994, was a Scottish football player and manager who managed Manchester United between 1945 and 1969 and again for the second half of the 1970-71 season. He was the first manager of an English team to win the European Cup and is widely regarded as one of the greatest managers of all time. Before going into management, Busby was a player for two of Manchester United's greatest rivals, Manchester City and Liverpool. During his time at City, Busby played in two FA Cup finals, winning one of them. After his playing career was interrupted by the Second World War, Busby was offered the job of assistant coach at Liverpool, but they were unwilling to give him the control that he wanted over the first team. As a result, he took the vacant manager's job at Manchester United instead, where he built the famous Busby Babes team that won successive Football League First Division titles and challenged for the European Cup. 8 of these players died in the Munich air disaster, but Busby rebuilt the team and won several more First Division titles as well as other domestic cups before he took United to European Cup glory a decade later. In a total of 25 years with the club, he won 13 trophies including 5 league championships and the European Cup. Managerial career. Arrival and early days at Manchester United. During the Second World War, Busby served as a football coach in the Army Physical Training Corps, and the experience resulted in Liverpool offering him the job of assistant to their then manager George Kay. However, the experience had also forged Busby's opinions about how football should be played and governed, and when it became clear that they differed from those of the Liverpool board, their chairman, Billy McConnell, allowed Busby to pursue alternative employment. After Manchester United had tried to sign Busby from Manchester City in 1930, he became good friends with United's fixer, Louis Rocker. Their relationship was helped by the fact that both were members of the Manchester Catholic Sportsmen's Club. United were in desperate need of a manager to take over from club secretary Walter Critmer after the war, and a board meeting was called in December 1944 so as to ascertain who that new manager might be. Knowing that Liverpool had already offered Busby a job, Rocker convinced the United board to leave it to him, and immediately wrote a letter to Busby, addressed to his army regiment. The letter was vague, referring only to a job, just in case it fell into the wrong hands, namely the Liverpool officials. In February 1945, still in uniform, Busby turned up at Cornbrook Cold Storage, one of the United chairman James W. Gibson's businesses at Trafford Park to discuss the contents of Rocker's letter with the chairman. Busby requested that he be directly involved in training, pick the team on match days, and even choose the players to be bought and sold without interference from the club directors, who, he believed, did not know the game as well as he did. Such a level of control over the team was unprecedented in the English game, but the United chairman was in no position to argue. Busby was originally offered a 3-year contract but managed to secure himself a 5-year deal after explaining that it would take at least that long for his revolution to have a tangible effect. The contract was signed that day, the 19th of February 1945, but it was not until the 1st of October that Busby officially took over the reins at Manchester United. In the interim, he returned to the Army Physical Training Corps, whose football team he took to Bari, Italy, in the spring of 1945. There, he took in a training session for a football team made up of non-commissioned officers led by West Bromwich Albion's former halfback Jimmy Murphy. Impressed by the Welshman's oratory skills, Busby engaged him in conversation and offered him the job of chief coach at Manchester United, which Murphy accepted verbally there and then, before joining the club officially in early 1946. The two men immediately put their mark on the side, leading them to the runners-up spot in the league, behind Busby's former employers Liverpool, by the end of the 1946-47 season. Manchester United were runners-up in the league in 1947, 1948, 1949, and 1951, and won the FA Cup in 1948, before winning the league championship in 1952. This was a welcome success for a club which had last won a major trophy in 1911 and had spent the interwar years bouncing between the first and second divisions. By 1952, however, the side captained by Johnny Carey was beginning to show its age, and a new set of players had to be found. Busby, who had achieved a great deal of success in spite of his lack of previous managerial experience, was expected to spend large sums of money on high-profile players. Instead, he gradually replaced the older players with players as young as 16 and 17. These included right-back Bill Foulkes, centre-halves Mark Jones and Jackie Blanchflower, wingers Albert Scanlon and David Pegg, and forward Billy Wheeler. Among them was Duncan Edwards, judged by many to be England's finest player of his era, 27, 28, 29, and capped by England at 17, setting a record for the youngest ever full international that remained unbroken for more than 40 years. He made relatively few signings from other clubs between 1951 and 1957, rare examples being winger Johnny Berry, forward Tommy Taylor, and goalkeeper Harry Gregg. Busby managed the Great Britain team at the 1948 Summer Olympics. The team reached the semi-finals, but lost 3-1 to the eventual runners-up, Yugoslavia. In 1956, just after United won another league title, Busby was offered the Real Madrid managerial role. The Real Madrid president at the time, Santiago Bernabeu Jest, told him that the role was like managing paradise. Busby responded by declining the job and adding, "Manchester is my heaven." The Busby Babes and the Munich tragedy. Busby, back row, far right, in a Manchester United team photo in 1957. During this period, the team picked up the affectionate nickname the Busby Babes because of the youthfulness of many of the players he fielded. They won the league in both 1956 and 1957, and were runners-up to Aston Villa in the 1957 FA Cup final. The young side was so successful that centre-forward Tommy Taylor and goalkeeper Harry Gregg were United's only major signings over a spell of almost 5 years. Busby and his team began the 1957-58 season ready for a second bid to win the treble of the Football League title, FA Cup, and European Cup. On the way home from a European Cup tie against Red Star Belgrade on the 6th of February 1958, their plane crashed on the runway at Munich-Riem Airport. 7 United players and 3 club officials were among the 21 people who died at the scene, while Duncan Edwards died from his injuries 2 weeks later as the final death toll reached 23. 2 other players, Johnny Berry and Jackie Blanchflower, were injured to such an extent that they never played football again. Busby's old friend from Manchester City, the goalkeeper Frank Swift, who had travelled to Munich in his post-playing career as a journalist, also died. Busby suffered multiple injuries and twice received the last rites, but he recovered from his injuries and left the hospital after 9 weeks. He was not aware of the extent of the Munich tragedy until some 3 weeks after the crash, as doctors felt he was not strong enough to know the truth until then. Towards the end of February 1958, he asked a Franciscan friar at the hospital how Duncan Edwards was faring. The friar was unaware that the news of Edwards's death had been kept from him and felt that it was his duty to inform Busby that Edwards was dead. His wife Jean then had to tell him of all the other players and officials who had lost their lives. He reportedly told his wife that he felt like quitting his manager's job, as he had feelings of guilt over the disaster. Busby had gone against the wishes of Football League officials by pressing for Manchester United's participation in the European Cup and had not felt able to challenge the aircraft's pilot about taking off in heavy snow. Jean urged him to carry on with his duties in honour of the players who had died. In March 1958, Busby also had to face the torment of player Johnny Berry, who suffered career-ending injuries in the crash, complaining that Tommy Taylor was a poor friend for not visiting him in the hospital. Unaware that Taylor had been killed, Busby had been urged to keep the news from Berry at this stage, which he found particularly difficult. In the meantime, the team was managed by Jimmy Murphy, who had been taking charge of the Wales team at the time of the crash, and so was not present. Busby attended a New Look United side's FA Cup final defeat against Bolton Wanderers at Wembley 3 months later, and resumed full managerial duties for the following season. Busby had been appointed the manager of Scotland before the Munich disaster. Dawson Walker took charge of the team during the 1958 World Cup instead. After recovering from his injuries, Busby managed Scotland in 2 games later that year against Wales and Northern Ireland. 30. Busby gave an 18-year-old Denis Law, then with Huddersfield Town, his first Scotland cap. He had already expressed an interest in signing Law for United by this stage, although he had yet to be successful in doing so. Manchester United FC in 1960, from the left, standing, Maurice Setters, Bill Foulkes, Ronnie Cope, Harry Gregg, Albert Scanlon, Bobby Charlton. Front row, Warren Bradley, Albert Quixel, Dennis Viollet, Shea Brennan, and Joe Carolan. After the crash, Busby built a new side around Munich survivors including Harry Gregg, Bobby Charlton, and Bill Foulkes. A number of surviving players including Albert Scanlon, Kenny Morgans, and Dennis Viollet resumed their careers but moved on to other clubs in the 4 years following the disaster. As well as promoting reserve and youth players, including Shea Brennan and Johnny Giles to the first team, Busby also delved into the transfer market to sign players including David Hurd, Albert Quixel, and Denis Law. Northern Irish teenager George Best was scouted for Manchester United by Bob Bishop and signed to the club's playing staff by Chief Scout Joe Armstrong, making his first team debut in September 1963. Busby successfully rebuilt United, as he guided them to a 3-1 victory over Leicester City in the 1963 FA Cup final. They were league champions in 1965 and again in 1967, with a defeat on the final day of the 1967-68 season seeing rivals Manchester City snatch the title away. During the 1966 World Cup, Busby compiled a scouting report on the Portugal side for England manager Alf Ramsey. Busby added a note saying, "Dear Alf, first of all congrats, keep it up. I know you have knowledge of Portugal but have included a report which may help. Wembley final, the next stop is the wish of yours truly, Matt. European glory and retirement. A statue of Sir Matt Busby in front of Old Trafford Stadium." The biggest success of his career came on the 29th of May 1968 when the team won the European Cup. He retired as manager at the end of the following season, having announced his intention to do so on the 14th of January 1969, but remained at the club as a director, handing over managerial duties to trainer and former player Wolf McGuinness. When McGuinness was sacked in December 1970, Busby returned to the manager's seat on an interim basis until a new permanent appointment was made after the end of the season. The job went to Franco Fowle in June 1971 after United were unsuccessful in approaching Jock Stein and Don Revie. He carried on as a club director for 11 years before being made president in 1980. Honours: Player, Manchester City. FA Cup, 1933-34. Manager, Manchester United. First Division, 1951-52. 1955-56, 1956-57, 1964-65, 1966-67. FA Cup, 1947-48, 1962-63. FA Charity Shield, 1952, 1956, 1957, 1965, shared, 1967, shared. European Cup, 1967-68. Individual. PFA Merit Award, 1980. English Football Hall of Fame, Manager 2002. European Hall of Fame, Manager 2008. ESPN 7th Greatest Manager of All Time, 2013, 47. France Football 11th Greatest Manager of All Time, 2019, 48. World Soccer 36th Greatest Manager of All Time, 2013. Orders and Special Awards. Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, CBE 1958. Knight Bachelor, 1968. Knight Commander of the Order of St. Gregory the Great, KCSG 1972. Thanks for tuning into FA Cup Files, where every cup run holds a tale, and we're here to tell them all. From first whistles to last-minute winners, FA Cup Files will be here, uncovering football's finest. Subscribe and stay with us on FA Cup Files, where the magic never fades, and the legends live on.